Today on American Indian, we travel back in time almost 700 years to visit Lodhi Gardens and Safdarjung Tomb. It's grass, greenery, flowers, archways, domes, bridges, and more today on American Indian. We're an American family living in India. We love food, film, language, culture, and making new friends. Join our adventures from America to India and beyond. The historic Lodhi Garden is a beautiful spot in Delhi, good for relaxing and enjoying the flowers, exploring ancient monuments, exercising, taking yoga classes, playing soccer or ultimate frisbee, and oh so much more. No one knows exactly when the garden was built, but we know it has been around in one form or another since at least the 13th century AD.
What have you learned so far?
This place is pretty.
Nothing else?
That side, that temple, the outside
It's
is
not a temple, it's a tomb.
tomb. The outside is an octagon. Then, at the top, it's a circle. It's a dome. So they'd use that by doing such and such and such. I don't remember what Auntie Rachel said because she said it too quietly.
Alright, there's your tourist guide.
In the 15th and 16th centuries, important people, namely emperors, started constructing their tombs in this beautiful garden spot. 200 years later, when Delhi was particularly unsafe due to frequent gang raids, rural populations began taking shelter in ancient buildings all over Delhi, and Lodhi Gardens with its tombs became the village of Khairpur. Later in the 1910s, the Brits kicked out all the Khairpur villagers, restored the tombs and the grounds, and re-established the garden. They named it Lady Willingdon Park after the viceroy's wife. After independence, the garden was again renamed, this time after Sikandar Lodhi, whose tomb is found inside the garden, and the garden was re-landscaped. So last week, our family decided to explore the historic Lodhi Garden and Safdarjung Tomb using two books for reference. Lucy Peck's Delhi, 1,000 Years of Building, showed us what aspects of the site should impress and distress us. This book is written by an architect who doesn't hide her opinions about each of the monuments and their surroundings. It's actually quite entertaining and occasionally offensive, quite often over my head with the architectural criticisms. Swapna Little's Delhi 14 Historic Walks gave us the route of our adventures, starting in Gate 1 of Lodhi Garden and ending at Safdarjung's tomb, but only after a 3-day break in the middle, during which we lost 2 members of our party. Hey, it's stinking hot in Delhi these days, and long walks, no matter how historic, aren't very enjoyable. That brings me to my first bit of advice about exploring the Lodhi Garden / Safdarjung tomb area. Go in the fall, winter, or spring. If you really want to visit the area in hot season, bring at least a liter of water per person because you won't find many people selling bottled water in or around the park, and you will need to hydrate. Usually there's a cart set up near the India Habitat Center entrance, and sometimes a guy selling ice cream outside the opposite side of the park near the bridge. Actually, my family visited Lodhi Gardens earlier this year in February on a school field trip, and I would highly recommend going around that time. The flowers were in bloom, the weather was lovely. That was the time to be out and about. I was chaperoning some of my daughter's Korean classmates who were kind of underwhelmed by the monuments. Give them a break, they're kids. I probably would have been the same way. But they loved skipping rocks across the water. And really big fans of the geese. There's a little geese pen near the water, and kids were fascinated with the goose eggs.
What kind of tree is this?
This is a pong
Oh,
papri.
like, how did they make it?
Oh, that is interesting. So tell me again, what was the food name again?
Tteokbokki.
Tteokbokki. This rice cake with spicy?
Yes, spicy sauce.
Alright.
We are going over there. I want to go to there. Oh, look, a cutie. As you know, we're at Lodhi Gardens, like the best place. And it's like so not polluted. So much for I am not an adventurous girl. Anyway, I'm off. Dun 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 dun. We are going into there. Oh, people love chipmunks. More like people love my brother.
One of the things that fascinates me about Lodhi Gardens are all the garbage cans that have been specially designed and painted.
Oh, that is awesome. I like it.
Certain municipalities around India and in Delhi are really trying to put the green back into India, keep clean, keep green, and use the waste bin. So the presence of waste bins in Lodhi Gardens is a welcome addition. The grounds are very clean. People are doing a good job of using the waste bins, and the waste bins are really creatively decorated. We began our hot season walk at Gate 1 of Lodhi Garden and went straight to the southwest corner of the garden, where we saw the tomb of Muhammad Shah Syed, a 15th century octagonal single-chambered tomb.
Ooh, that cool.
From there, we took what the map showed to be a straight shot across the lawn to a small mosque tucked away in the middle of the garden. Quote-unquote straight shot took us off-roading with Rohan's stroller as a bike path runs across this lawn, which isn't so much lawn as much as a forest-like thing, and the bike path is a solid 3 foot below lawn level. So a bit of advice number 2, just take the long way around via the sidewalks to get to the small mosque, especially if you're on wheels, have a small child, or less than stellar off-roading capabilities. There's only one unmarked entrance to the mosque area, so if you're not looking for it, you probably won't find it. If you do find the mosque, you'll probably be pretty unimpressed. It's a small, reddish building, but the surrounding gardens are quite beautiful. There are a couple small ponds filled with flowering lily pads and swarming with tadpoles.
Wow, look at all those flowers.
One pond also has a large island in the middle of it with some beautiful flowers on it. These ponds may not be quite as fun in mosquito season, as I'm pretty sure they're just little mosquito breeding grounds, but in the hot season they're quite pleasant. Perhaps the best part of the garden is that since it's difficult to find, it was completely isolated. It's a nice, quiet, isolated space in the heart of Delhi. There are some visitors that frequent this area. While we were there, we did catch sight of some pretty birds, yellow-footed green pigeons, that are really quite beautiful to observe. From there, we visited the Baragamba, its associated mosque, Majlis Khana, ancient rooms that historians assume were living places, people associated with the mosque, and the Shish Gumba. Interestingly, there isn't historical consensus on what the Bara and Shish Gumba were. The Baragamba looks like the surrounding tombs on the outside, but has no evidence of a tomb within, so it may have been a large gateway to something instead. The Shish Gumba is clearly a tomb, but there's disagreement on whose it was. People generally agree that the buildings were erected in the late 15th to early 16th centuries, though.
Lolly, love, something. Why do people write their names in tombs? Lovebirds.
Next, we walked on to the northeast corner of Lodhi Garden to see the Sikandar Lodhi. On the way, we passed a wooden area to the left, an area which I happen to know is rich in geocaching finds, if you're into that sort of thing. And if you're not, look it up, join the movement. Fair warning, though, this particular grouping of trees is quite the popular couples spot in the evenings. Public displays of affection are the norm, so either come early to do your geocaching or come prepared to make some awkward interruptions as you step over snugglers to find hidden gems in the trees under which they're snuggling. Lodhi's tomb is surrounded by 4 walls and a garden, making it seem like one of the dominant structures in Lodhi Garden, though the tomb itself is not that large. It was also constructed in the late 15th to early 16th century. Exiting Lodhi's tomb and turning to our left, we found number 1, a very pretty fountain, whose spray is quite refreshing in the mid-morning and hot season, and number 2, a great view of the Otpula, a bridge built during Akbar's reign between 1556 and 1605 AD. This is the same area the aforementioned students found to be such a blast for rock skipping. In between Lodhi's tomb and the bridge, we also found a little workout area. Although my family didn't partake of this particular amenity, if you choose to do your own Lodhi Garden historic walk, please note that this is about the halfway mark, so you'll probably want to take a moment to rest your legs and give your arms a quick workout by doing a few pull-ups and or short parallel bar routine before moving on. Or not, it's totally up to you. After crossing the bridge, we continued to follow the footpath heading back toward gate number 1. Along the way to our right, we passed a small mosque and gateway. Though these are small, damaged structures that don't necessarily catch the eye, they're worth checking out for their surrounding grounds. At the back of the gate, there are stairs that lead up to the first floor, and from there you can look out over a beautiful rose garden. Sadly, when we went in June, the rose garden had been dug up and seemed to be under construction. But when we went in February, the roses were out and in full bloom. Yet another reason to visit in the spring instead of the hot season. A little further on, we pass a small tower on our left. This is now a little makeshift guard shack / employee rest area, but you can still walk around it and see a coolish old building. It's believed that the tower may have been a turret in an old wall that once surrounded the Baragamba and its buildings. From here, my family returned to gate number 1. A few days later, Mel, Rohan, and our friend Rachel returned to finish off the historic walk laid out in Little's book. The last bit of the walk involves walking down the street to Safdarjung's tomb and seeing that ancient building in its ground. Safdarjung's tomb was built after the death of Safdarjung, who was the ruler of Awadh and the wazir or prime minister of the Mughal Empire in 1754. It's the last of the Delhi tombs built in the classic Mughal style with a char bagh, which is a garden split into sections. There's a fee to enter Safdarjung's tomb, 5 rupees for Indians and 100 rupees for foreigners, but it's definitely worth it because it ensures a peaceful, relatively isolated area, and the gardens are quite beautiful. There are peacocks, at least 4 that Mel and Rachel saw.
Yeah, there they are. I hear them. We're like way behind there.
Unfortunately, the tomb itself has been vandalized by all sorts of kids, I'm being generous in assuming that only children would do such things, who felt the need to memorialize themselves and their love for one another by defacing a national monument. Way to go, Gopal. Your deep love for Lakme caused an ancient ruler to roll over in his grave. Also disappointing, though perhaps not on the same level, was the fact that all the entryways to the turrets had been nailed shut, so you can't risk your life climbing an ancient staircase to get a pretty view of the grounds. I want to go to there. But enough of the downsides, let's take another look at the pretty grounds and the serenity. I mean, seriously, this is like Taj Mahal right without all the tourists, way less expensive, and without having to take the extra trek out to Agra. Safdarjung for life, yo. I know it's not the same, and I know it's not as big, but the grounds are really beautiful and the structure is as well. Kudos to Melissa for taking up camera duties for this video. This is her first time being the go-to cameraman for an American Indian episode. All the stuff from Safdarjung is hers. Proud of my baby. All in all, Lodhi Gardens and Safdarjung Tomb are brilliant places to visit, so next time you're in Delhi, be sure to stop by. But if it's hot, definitely bring some water.